So, good morning or good afternoon, whatever it is. Is it morning still? Kids going to class with Brother Ryan. So, to just do a little stage setting, the word that I have for you today, I literally have changed the title about 42 times. The message has stayed pretty consistent, but the title keeps changing because it's like the focus keeps shifting. But God began to lay this on my heart several weeks ago, months ago almost. And it's Proverbs 18:10. So I'll just tell you now, that's where we're going to be. We're going to spend a lot of time on that scripture. But the focus of it continued to move around for me. And God just took me on this journey of moving this around for me. And then we have today. So I do want to let you know, always let you guys know, I began with the end in mind. I will have the praise and worship team come back up, and they are going to lead us in the song Made for More. We're going to do that again because I want to send you out with that message. And you'll see that in today's message, but I want to send you out with that message. Do you believe that you're made for more? Okay, so I want to ask a question. Stan said this earlier, and I captured it, and I wrote it down real quick because I didn't want to forget it. He said that when we worship, and I'm asking a question, and this is okay, we can interact here a little bit. Stan said, it's easy not to focus on God. And he paused there, and he says, now I'm going to go into my prayer, and he stopped right there. Now, I think in context, he was talking about it's easy not to focus on God in praise and worship. That sometimes we get caught up in all kinds of other things. But in another way, I think it could mean it is easy not to focus on God. Now, the question is why? I'm asking you. You can shout it out. Why? Why is it easy sometimes not to focus on God? You gave a couple of answers, Stan. Distractions. Okay. What else? What?
Well, a distraction could be like worry or anxiety over stuff.
Yes. Our old buddy Worry moves in our house, doesn't he? Lives in the back room. Doesn't pay a bit of rent, but lives there. Why else? Why else is it easy not to focus on God?
We live by our physical senses.
We live by our physical senses. We live by that. Now, let me ask you another question. What does life look like when we focus on God? Now, don't answer that one. We're going to come to that answer together. But I want you to think about this for just a moment. You have life ahead of you, right? You have life behind you. But you have life ahead of you. Things that you're going to encounter in life. Different activities that you're going to encounter in life. Well, you've got birth. You definitely have to have that one. You've got birth. You've got childhood. You've got being a teenager. And Jacob is going through his teenage years right now, and I look at it and I laugh a lot because I've already been there and done that, right? And so I look back on it now and I just get tickled and I laugh because he's doing a lot of like dumb stuff. and it's like watching it, sometimes I just tell him, son, I just got one request. Don't do dumb. Like sometimes that's just my request. Don't do dumb. But he does those things, and I get tickled because he does these things. But as we go on in life, we have careers, we have marriages, we have relationships, we have aging, we have tragedies, we have death. And I hate to leave that on a negative note, but we all have that one ahead of us. We're going to meet that. So when you look at that, when we are not focused on God, we are focused on those things. But in Proverbs 18:10, it says something different that we're going to look at, and we're going to look at how that changes how the righteous behave in life. Okay? We're going to look at that. So, I did leave off The last time I spoke, I talked about freedom, endurance, and strength and how they work together. And when I talked about strength, I just kind of touched on it a little bit. I didn't go deep into it. So I'm actually picking that back up, and we're going to talk about strength and safety. There's a relationship between strength and safety that we need to understand. It's crucial for your relationship with God. It's crucial to understand strength and safety. So we're going to pick it up there. And so if you look at Proverbs 18:10, now I wanted you to understand the version that I'm reading is out of the Complete Jewish Bible. Okay? And the reason why I'm reading that one is because it puts the words in a little bit of a different order, if you will, and it brings in some of the meanings that sometimes some translations, it's not bad. I don't want you to think it's bad, but it kind of shifts that a little bit. And so it's very important that you hear this out of the way that the ancient readers would have read it, as close as I can get it translated into English. So it says, the name of Adonai is a strong tower. So first of all, understand, we'll come back to this, it says the name Adonai. There's something about that name, Adonai. It doesn't say God is a strong tower. It says the name Adonai. Why does it say that? That may seem odd to us, but we're going to look at that. And it says, is a strong tower. Why does that strong tower? Could have called it so many different things, but why strong tower? And if you notice, it then goes into the relationship. So it's a strong tower for who? A righteous person who runs to it. Now, some translations say into it. It's very important that you understand, originally it would have said runs to it, not into it. There's a reason for that. And is raised high above danger. Now, all of this right here goes into the grander lesson of how in the world do we respond to life? Well, it depends. Are you righteous or unrighteous? Do you live in the ways of the Lord or do you not? Is going to depend. So there's a relationship that pivots how you're going to respond to his name, to that name Adonai. Okay, so when we talk about made for more, and that song came up and I was like, that's perfect because, like I say, I've shifted the title of this message 14 times. And so originally it was just going to be Strong Tower because that's what we're going to talk about. It's kind of central is that strong tower. But what is strong tower? We'll look at that, why that's important. But that's what it was going to be. And then I was like, well, it's really, I really think the focus is strength and safety. And I was like, well, I don't know about that. But it came down to the word thrive. Thrive. And then they sang the song, Made for More. And I was like, do we live that life that we're made for more? And I want you to think about this for just a moment. What are you thriving? What are you thriving in? You have a mission. We do realize that, right? As believers, you have a mission. There is an ask for you to do. You are to do something. It's not just to feel good all the time. How many of you feel good all the time? Some of the time? None of the time? No, I'm kidding. It's not just about that. You do have a mission. But you have to be, my question is, and I'm asking this question because maybe some conviction and maybe just some observation. How many of you thrive on that mission or how many of you survive on that mission? Are we focused on survival or are we focused on thriving on this mission? And that is kind of where the God kept bringing me back that this is a moment to thrive. So I want to just set the stage a little bit with the two words, strength and safety. I'm going to set the stage, and then we're going to dive into Proverbs, okay? So if you'll give me a moment to set the stage. I just want to talk a little bit about strength. So there is an abundant life that comes from thriving versus surviving. Jesus says in Matthew 11:7, and speaking of in John, what did you go to see? Or he's speaking of John. He says, what did you go see? Reeds swaying in the breeze. You remember him saying that? Okay, so some of you may already know what that was about, but that was a story or an illustration that back in those days. So if you had a reed swaying in the wind, it would move with everything. right? It would just move, it would sway. Now, in some ways, in today's society, we may say, hey, that's not bad. At least you don't die. You sway, you just move with everything. But that's not what that's illustrating here, because it's weak. It's flimsy. It sways with everything. Oh, it may stick around, but it sways with everything. So what's the other part of it? Well, the other part that Jesus didn't say in this statement, but they would have understood when he said that statement, was the comparison is an oak tree. An oak tree grows tall and big and hard and strong and way above. The reeds, they don't get as tall as the oak tree. And they move and they're flimsy, but the oak tree grows tall and big and strong. But there's something about the oak tree. When the winds come against it, it can stand against so much. It will not sway. But you know what? An oak tree will break. Eventually break, and it'll die. But the saying is, I will stand strong in what I believe, even unto death. You will not move me from what I believe. I will not sway. I will stand strong. And so that's what that is, that strength. The message that Jesus was giving about John in that moment was he was referencing John's strength. So let me ask you a question, and this is a little interaction again. So how do we get strength? How do we get strength? And I'm talking about, you can range it. It's broad. Strength comes in different ways. Physical. We look at Gary. Physical. Mental, emotional. We get it. But what are your thoughts when I say, you know what, you need to gain some strength? What are some things that would set about in your mind? Test, knowledge, learning, prayer, joy of the Lord. You're getting somewhere.
Go back to Isaiah about your quietness and confidence.
Okay. Yeah. Has anybody, like I do understand, and I know in our Christian walk, and it's easier for us to hear that God will give us strength. And I do understand that God does give strength. So please understand that. I do totally understand that. But how else does he help us gain strength? Okay. Okay. What was that? Exercise? Strain. Opposition. Resistance. All of those things are real about strength. So it's easy to say in our spiritual life and our emotional life, why would we not do those things? Why would we not do those things? So we do know some strength is given to us, but we may grow strength in other ways. Why do we not do those things? Why do we not lean into those things? Hurts, uncomfortable. But what if I was to tell you, you need to do it because you're made for more? What if I say you do it because you're not looking at you, you're looking at him? And then once you change your focus, things change. Now, Gary, I don't know if you was ever taught this, and you could tell us, but I've heard before that people who are really good at exercising and disciplining their bodies, often what they'll do, like if they're really going up against a lot of strain, they'll find something to focus on. They'll look at something, and they'll just get their mind focused on it. And then I forget the term, but where, like if you're wanting to grow a tricep muscle, you think about it. Mind to muscle. You think about it. You focus on it. So it's not just enough you do the exercise. You literally are thinking about that body part, that focus. Part of gaining strength is going to be your focus. So I'm going to just give you a little fact about strength. It is mentioned over 260 times in the scriptures. I think it's probably important. Now, 41 of those times, the specific name Adonai is referenced with strength. I think that's also important. Now, let's just look at this. I'm just going to give you a few. Exodus 15:2, Adonai is my strength. Psalms 18:1, I love you, Adonai, my strength. Habakkuk 3:19, Adonai Elohim is my strength. And that's just a few that you can look at. You can keep going. There's more and more and more. So let's put strength and say, okay, strength is going to be important in our conversation today. Now let's look at safety. Now, safety is more of an enabler. What are some of the things it enables? It enables courage. It enables trust when you feel safe. So I do want you to understand that if you don't feel safe, you can't thrive. If you don't have safety, it's going to interrupt your thriving. I'm going to give you an example, okay? So let's say this section right here. I don't know if you guys noticed, but all during church, or all during worship, I was noticing this part of the roof is about to cave in. Now, if you believed me, how much, and it could fall on you at any moment, how much of what we'll say will matter to you? As long as your safety is at risk, your focus is broken. It happens. Did you know it happens to you every we're not out in the wilderness fighting lions anymore, but there are things that you're hardwired in your brain and in your emotional makeup that somebody at work you may feel like threatens your job in some way. Your safety, once it becomes compromised in your mind works the same way as if it was an animal compromising your safety. It's in your mind, it's working the same way. Your emotional makeup works the same way. So if you do not have safety, then your ability to focus becomes very damaged. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible. If you guys really believe this is going to fall on your head, some of you would say, you know what, I'm moving. Some of you would maybe sit there and worry about it. I won't mention any names, Carla, but you'd react differently. But one thing you would not be focused on is words, anything that would have to have your engagement with your mental capacities. You wouldn't. Your focus would be broken. But I do want to say this. To thrive, you must have both strength and safety. You have to have both. You will not thrive. You will not accomplish that you're made for more unless you have both. You have to have both of those things. Now, I do want to say that safety should not be mistaken for comfort. Brandon, we've talked about that so many times. We've probably talked that one to death. But safety and comfort are related but distinct concepts. Safety is the feeling of being protected from harm or danger. That's what allows you to have full resources to do the things you need to do. Comfort is the feeling of contentment. And so they're two different things, because I think comfort can sometimes work as your enemy. Safety is your friend. Alan, you should really love all this talk about safety. Alan's back there like he's checking his list. He's like, got it. So now safety, and I'm almost done setting the stage here, but safety is mentioned 26 times in the scriptures, 6 times with the name Adonai. Again, that name is important. You can see it in Psalm 4:9, in Adonai I live securely. Psalms 28:7, Adonai is my strength and shield. We sang a song about that this morning. Psalm 37:39, but the salvation of the righteous is from Adonai. Now, strength and safety combined in our life's journey, in this mission that we are on, that we should thrive, not survive, in this mission that we are on, they're companions. Strength and safety are companions. Safety is not just the absence of danger. So it's not the absence of danger. How many know that danger is always there? It's always there, but it is the presence of strength. And it is the central theme of Proverbs 18:10. So, what are some of the sources of strength for the world? Because source is very important. So now we know, and we were talking the other night on Tuesday's group, we was talking about how source is so important. So when you think about strength and safety, the world has it. The world has it. Where did they get it? Where does the world get strength and safety? Money. It's the first place I go to. And you know what? Solomon did too, because the verse right after it actually says that. So what else? Control. Who said control? Wow, that's a good one. Control. Military, yeah, like that's my protection. That's my safety. So your source of safety, here's an important piece. And Morgan, I think it relates so well, and also to control. do you know your source will determine your focus? Okay? So sometimes you can tell what people are focused on by where they're gaining their strength and where they're gaining their safety. Have you witnessed that? Maybe sometimes in our own lives that shows up. So wisdom from King Solomon, which that's who this is attributed to, Proverbs 18:10, not only provides us with the source. Now it's very important, these things I'm going to say, because I'm going to pop up some slides here in a moment, because I'm very visual, and I've talked about that before, but when I pop up these slides, there's a way of breaking this down that visually it will help, okay? So in Proverbs 18:10, talks about the source of strength and safety, but it also tells us who has access to that source. It tells us what actions they should take and how this action causes you to relate to life. It's all packed in that one little verse. It's all packed in there. So if you can go ahead and pull up that first slide. And as you can see, the first slide that I had, I titled this Strong Tower. You can scratch that out and put it as many titles as you want because I've changed it 40 times. So why should it stop with me? But again, reading the scripture, the name of Adonai is a strong tower. The name Adonai is a strong tower, and a righteous person runs. A righteous person runs to it. Makes me wonder what the unrighteous does. And is raised high above. In this one scripture, we got 4 things. Okay, and we're going to break them all down together. Okay, we've got the focus, a name and a strong tower. That is the focus. We'll look at that. The name and the strong tower, them being mentioned together are the focus. Okay, we've got the relationship. Clearly, the righteous person responds to the name Adonai differently than the unrighteous. The unrighteous doesn't respond to it the same way. We've got the action. Notice that it says the righteous, what do? Run. What does that mean? They run? Why are they running? Are they running from something? Or are they running to something? Okay? And then we've got the result. The result of the focus and the relationship and the action will show you exactly how it relates to your life. So there's a whole lot of goodness and wisdom in Proverbs 18. We've got seeking wisdom, power of words, humility, pride, friendship, loyalty, justice and fairness, power of the tongue, and then it comes to strength and safety. So today we are going to focus on Proverbs 18:10. So if you want to go to slide 2. So I'm actually going to use this slide to illustrate. So if you notice down here at the bottom, it says, and I'm not real sure why the top of my F and the top of my R cut off. It's really frustrating. But anyway, it says the focus, and then we're going to move to relationship. But these two groupings work together. So the first thing that you see up there is the name. It says the name of Adonai. It does not say the God. It says the name of Adonai. Why is that so important? Well, there's various reasons, but I'm going to make it, I'm going to narrow this. In the days that this would have been written, the names would have been very, very powerful. The name meant the reputation of the individual. It meant the reputation of the person, all-encompassing. Now, if you think about it today, though, names aren't that much different in some ways. Did you know that psychologically, the word that your brain will respond to first is your name? When you hear your name, you have some kind of reaction that happens and it responds. Did you also know that when you hear your name, in most cases, it triggers endorphins that instantly gives you a better feeling? So if you're talking to someone and they start calling you by name, what does that do for you when they start doing that? Makes you kind of feel like you know them. You got a relationship. Okay? Now, it needs to have some sincerity because I've also heard that come off very fake. But it feels that connection. So the name is still important today. And when I think about, Carla told me a story, and I know we're streaming, so that's okay. They can hear this at Gene Law Firm. And she talks about, and this cracked me up when she said this. First time she ever said it. Now, she said it a lot of times since, but she texted me. She's at work, I'm at work. She texts me. She says, hey, Kevin. Or she says, I have changed my name. I was like, what is that supposed to mean? So I was like, did she mess up? Did auto text fill out something here? What happened? I've changed my name. What does that mean? And so she elaborated on it, and she says, I've heard my name so many times today at work that I am no longer responding. I forget what you changed your name to. It's been multiple names now, because once they start using that one, she changes it too. But that name, so sometimes hearing that name may send different waves to you. But there's this other name that happens. And I want to explain it, and then I'll go into that name Adonai. The name Adonai, what does that mean? There is a very deep relationship piece to the name Adonai. There's all kinds of names for God. But the name Adonai is relationship. When you call on that name, that's a name of relationship. And so I think of this name, dear. Dear. So I don't know when it started, but for many, many years now, my wife has always called me dear, and I have called her dear in return. Now, she has many other names for me that I cannot say, nor do I like to respond to. They do invoke terror. But the name dear, when she says that, there's something about when she says dear that I know she knows me. She knows my ads, my likes, my dislikes. That's tone. Right? Tone's a whole different thing. But when she says that, it means something. When I say it back to her, there's something there. And that one word, dear, it has so much meaning. Dear. Now, if you called me that, I'd be like, you me? I was at a gas station. I went in, the pump didn't work, so I had to go in. The lady kept calling me dear. Oh, dear. Thank you, dear. I didn't like it. I in my mind, like it was triggering something. I know she was just trying to be nice. I know that, and I appreciated that. But it was triggering something in me, like, you don't know me. You can't call me that. Like, that was what was triggering in me. That name Adonai, it means it has this relational meaning. So a deeper understanding of the name Adonai, and we could get into names for a long, long time. I'm not going to do that to you. But here's some of the things that it signifies. When that name, here's some things that, especially in the ancient days when they would say the name Adonai, some of the things, which literally in its simplest form, it means Lord or Master. But it talks about what's wrapped in that is sovereignty of God, lordship and authority over all creation. His role as a protector and provider and sustainer. Adonai, it's got power. That name has power. But the other part that it captures, and I thought this is very, the name Adonai meant to show relationship. This is just not calling him in his lordship or calling him in relationship, the name Adonai. And then if you look at, again, I could go into all kinds of things about the name, but you know, it's if you go back and you see it's derived from the unpronounceable name of God, YHVH. But the reason why that's important is Stan talked about this, I believe it was last week. He said it for just a moment. He talked about the name. Then when he says I am the I am. Like what does that mean? Well, you guys didn't listen to Stan's message, so Stan, mark that down. Well, what does it mean when he says I am? I will be what I've always been. I'm complete. I'm whole. I am. Period. I am. Now, that's very important because I do want to talk to you a little bit about knowing God's reputation, but I want to just pull this out for just a moment and talk about reputation and identity. And then I want to show you how when we speak about God, it's different than when we speak about each other. Okay? And I just want to give you that for an example. So, reputation and identity. So, there's two parts of a person's personality: reputation and identity. Identity is how you see yourself. It's the you that only you know. Did you know that? There is inside of you, there's an identity that I can't know that identity. It's you, it's how you see yourself, and nobody else is necessarily going to understand, or they may understand it, but they're not going to see it that way. The other part is what we call reputation. Now, reputation, we can actually measure and we can see. And part of my job is I do these things, and I go and I give assessments to find how people see you. And then the joy that I get is I get to sit down with the person and tell them, this is how, based on the answers that you gave, this is how people see you. Now, there's different parts of your personality, and I won't get into all those details about your reputation, but I will say there's parts of that people like to hear. There's parts of that people do not like to hear. So there's a part of always this piece of me when I go into these conversations, like I'm just waiting, right? Because there's some of that they don't want to hear. But you know what I found out on every one of them is they almost always have to agree with it. Okay? Now I want you to think about your reputation. Your reputation is kind of like your bumper sticker. A lot of times your reputation is the you that everybody else sees that you don't. Did you ever think about that? That there's a way people see you that you don't. Now, the people who love you in life, who maybe call you dear, they read your bumper sticker for you. They walk up and say, do you realize your bumper sticker says this? Do you realize your bumper sticker says that? Now, if somebody else comes up and you don't have a relationship with them and they read your bumper sticker, you may not like that, okay? Because they are talking about how you are seen, and it doesn't resonate with how you see yourself, that identity. So that's very important to understand, because in this scripture, when we talk about the name Adonai, and it comes all the way down from the moment when he says, I am, God does not function like that. God is. His identity and his reputation are exactly the same. Everything he does and everything he's going to do is captured in I am. It's whole. It's complete. It's 100%. Okay? So now I want you to look at that and understand that name is reputation, though, when we think about our relationship with God. How many know that some people, when they look at God, the reputation that they've given him is not the reputation that the righteous have for him? Right? And so that differently. The unrighteous does not respond to the name Adonai as I respond, but guess what? God responds to it different when the righteous calls him too. You see, it's about saying the name and the person hearing the name, and who's the source that it's coming from. The next thing is the intimate relationship. When you use the name Adonai, it is about knowing. It's about knowing God. It's about knowing. Now, I want to look at strong tower real quick. So strong tower is a term in Hebrew called migdal-oz. Now, migdal-oz is in lots of scripture. It's in lots of songs, Jewish hymns. There's lots of that. And it really signifies two things, strength and safety. That's what it signifies. But I just want to give you an example of why that was so important in that day and age. When I think of a tower and I think of a strong tower, my mind goes in all kinds of different places, right? But let me tell you ways that was used. So if you're in danger and you're somewhere, go to the strong tower. Why? Because it's strong and it's safe. And the higher up you go in the tower, the safer it becomes. So that's the reason why. So they used that term a lot. But did you know the tower was used for another reason? It was used for a guide. It was to guide people, because the big cities, if you had lots of people, you had taller towers. And guess what happens? You're not always close enough to that to get to that tower. But no matter where you wander, you could look and see your tower. You could see strong tower standing there. So regardless where you are in your journey, your strong tower stands, and you can always get to it. And so with these two things combined, we get the focus. That is the focus. The name Adonai is strength and safety. The name. But that name Adonai is strength and safety only to the righteous person. Now, I get it. in every way and doesn't matter. Every knee's going to bow, right? But think about it in relationship terms. In relationship terms, the righteous person is going to see this. They're going to see this. And knowing God is all about the relationship piece. And so when you look at this, there's an action that's tied to it. And that's the next piece that we're going to go to. If you go to that next slide. So that next piece is all about relationship. And it's about the thing that right after that is action. Relationship, it's all about God. Adonai and you don't know God is not the same response as if you use the name Adonai and you do know God. If you got a relationship with God, the name Adonai immediately means strength and safety for you. Okay? Because the righteous know God, the righteous have a particular relationship with God. The unrighteous do not. Okay? So let's just look at a few things. I'm going to give you 3 things that the righteous, there's a lot more, but I'm going to give you 3 things that stand out to me. In a relationship, they hear. They hear. We see this in Isaiah 6:8. Then I heard the voice of the Lord. Did you know when, so Ella and Levi always tickle me because they know a particular sound that I will make and I can get their attention no matter where. Okay? So if you think about like my voice, they hear me. And all I do is I'll go, and you'll hear them go, pop, pop. Where they're at, I can hear it, pop. That distinct sound, they hear that. I also would like to see them if it's Carla and me, we come into the room at the same time, and the kids usually run to me before they run to her. So I just want to throw that out there. So they hear. If you are righteous, the way you hear the name of God is different. Relationship matters. The way you hear that name means something to you. It means something to you. It has a deeper meaning. You respond to it differently because of you have a relationship because of why? You know Him. The next thing is you'll find out those that are righteous, they rely on God. Earlier, control came up. Man, I struggle sometimes. I want control. But relying on God is crucial. And when you have a relationship, you know that you can rely on Him. Proverbs 3:11 and 12 talks about this. And then the other thing is that there's always a level of gratitude and appreciation. When you have a relationship with Adonai, it changes things. You begin to understand the relationship or the appreciation that you need to have. And we can see that in Psalms 119:62. The other thing that the righteous does is they run. They have a mission. And we also see that. Now I want you to look here. You can go to the, oh, thank you. Hey, thanks. When you look at the next, the run, I want to break this down for just a moment. So run to it. Run. So the Hebrew word that's used there, and every time that word is used in the Hebrew scriptures, it has also tied to it a sense of urgency. It has tied to it a sense of urgency. So it's not just I'm running. It means you are all out, giving it everything you have with all determination, with a huge sense of urgency. You are running. But also notice that it captures that you are not running away from anything. You are running to something. And there's a reason why I think that that's crucial and important. Because when we think about strength and safety, and you think about a high tower, you might think about, oh, I'm going to run to that for strength and safety. I'm going to run because I'm in danger. I'm in danger. And that makes perfect sense. And you can do that. You can absolutely do that.